everybody. Welcome to the most ill-conceived business podcast around, the Business is Bullshit podcast. I'm James Hornick. Joining me for episode 2. Can't believe we made it this far. My two most recently acquired best friends, Jared Gibson, John Sirakis. Welcome back, guys.
Thank you, buddy.
We made
Thanks.
it.
I got I fixed my mic situation, so my volume should be good.
All right.
A lot better.
This week's episode brought to you by LifeLock.
Mm-hmm. Well, hold on. Before we jump into LifeLock and all that, I'm happy that John's here. I'm happy that John made it back. John lived through the hurricane. John, you got to give us some stories down in Tampa.
Play by play. The hotel,
let's hear
this out. So my plan was, we'll sit here. We'll have a full view of the storm coming in. And we got a knock on the door. And the guy said, you have to leave. I said, whoa, like you guys are not staying for this? He's like, no, like we are leaving the hotel. So you have to be out of here in the next 2 hours, which I was like, all right, we were booked till Sunday. So went to Tampa. And sure enough, man, the bars and restaurants we all went to, some of them are no longer there. So it was a really good time while it lasted, but it's devastating for the people that stayed.
Where'd you stay during the actual when it hit?
Some shithole downtown Tampa. Actually, it's not a shithole. It's a hotel. It's been there for like 200 years or whatever. But yeah, it was weird as being downtown in Tampa. It was so minimal. Like you could see down, there's like some trees were blowing, but we're watching it on the news. You know, the people that like handcuffed themselves to a stop sign, and you just saw like devastation. And the next day, I was like, I want to go to the beach, but we couldn't because all the bridges were blocked off to prevent looters and gawkers like myself and my wife.
It's crazy. Yeah, I mean, you and I were in Clearwater up until I left on Wednesday, and some of the places that we went, like I've seen pictures of, and they're just completely gone.
Oh yeah, nuts. Frenchie's no longer there, man. Well, it's there, the shell of the place, but yeah, they're not going to be in business for a while. A lot of places, and the weird thing too is places that are grandfathered in these old laws because they've been around previous to Hurricane Andrew, which took place in the 90s and whatnot. I doubt they're going to be able to do the same standards like the little tiki hut and all that, which was kind of a shtick of Florida. So
yeah,
kind of sad.
Sucks.
Yeah. And then like, not to go off topic here, but like, and North Carolina, Asheville, like no one saw that coming, which was crazy. Dude. Like I didn't think like flooding that like in the mountains, like Asheville's like 2,000 feet above sea level or something like that. I didn't realize like the topography of it. It was all the towns like Western North Carolina or like Bull Basin, like mountain valleys. So all the water just collects in the mountains and floods right through kind of central. So there, it's pretty bad there. I know people in that area too. So
they're trapped, right? My cousin lives there. I guess they're trapped in there right now. Like there's no roads to get in and out.
Yeah, it's a mess.
It is. Man. Beach bums, hippies, everybody's been affected. It's just awful.
There we go. There he goes. There he is.
Let's get back on track and start talking shit here. All right, so we said we're making it. So I don't even know this is part of the show either, but like so LifeLock is our sponsor. How about that? Yeah. Jared, you have some news on the identity theft front?
Are we allowed to do fake sponsors in hopes that they'll
we can do whatever we
sponsor
want
someday?
Yeah, we can do whatever we want.
All right, that works. I'm good with that. So, a few months ago, was driving with the fam and got a notification that there was some weird activity in my Chase account, and looked at it, and there was thousands and thousands of dollars that had been taken out of my account. When I say thousands and thousands, I mean like a few $1,000s.
Yeah,
more. I just want to make it a lot bigger, a lot more than one.
Pluralize your thousands,
plural. And so I called Chase, and they, canceled the card. They put the money back in my account the next day. Fraud activity, good. We've all been there, done that, whatever. About 2 or 3 weeks later, I go to my account to check it out, and that money is pulled back out of my account again. And I'm like, what the fuck? Like, what is going on? So I called Chase, pissed off, and Chase told me that the vendor, the merchant, somebody apparently bought NBA Finals front row seats with my card, and the merchant that they bought it from, which was a ticket agency, provided proof that I'm the one that purchased these tickets. And I'm like, okay, well, like, what's this proof? Eventually I found out, because they couldn't tell me over the phone, they sent it to me, that it was my name, my email address, and my home address. And I'm like, wait, what else? And they're like, that's it. I'm like, what do you mean that's it? Like, my 8-year-old daughter could pull this shit off the internet in 5 seconds. That's all that's needed to verify. And so we went back and forth, and I opened up a ticket with them, a trouble, all this stuff back and forth for like 2 months. And they were sick and tired of hearing from me, and eventually just said, this is a closed case. We verified that you're the one that made the purchase. And, so basically I'm out this money that was sitting in what I thought was a protected bank account because some hacker was able to access my account and then just give them my name, email, and home address. And that's all they needed. So now, funny enough, I told my dad about this when I had pretty much given up on it. And my dad being my dad, well, I know somebody that works for USA Today. I'm like, no, it's fine, Dad, don't worry about it. She lives in the neighborhood. No, she'll do it. She's fine. So whatever. Next thing I know is my dad sends me a text the next day. He's like, this was keeping me up last night. So I went down and I talked to her. I'm like, okay. She wants to talk to you about your situation. So I'm like, all right, great. So we talk, and she goes, so your dad, I'm like, my dad made it sound like they passed each other taking the dogs for a walk. It's like, no, he knocked on the door and he asked me if I had a few minutes to talk.
Old school, man. I love it.
All old school. But
you got a minute?
Yeah, you got a minute. But apparently she works in the consumer fraud department. Like, this is the exact stuff. Took it to the editor of the story, and they're like, yeah, let's go with it. So we'll see what happens. I think we gave him a deadline through today to respond back. Chase and Visa. Chase put it on Visa. Visa was unresponsive and all this stuff. But the whole point of this story is the fact that money that you've earned, that you've put in your bank account is just not safe because hackers need the most minimal things. And it's crazy to me that that's all they need. So that's my story. I'm sure you guys have had some stories where you've been hacked.
I got one I can share similar, but the first thing, John, how much fun did we have at that NBA Finals game? I mean, that was
It's funny. I remember watching that game and just thinking, like, I was trying to figure out where the seats were.
Yeah, there's a video where did they tell you which seats were purchased?
Well, no, they didn't tell me which seats were purchased. The evidence that they said basically, Chase said there was evidence that you purchased these tickets. I'm like, evidence of me purchasing these tickets is me on camera walking into the arena for that game. Like, that's evidence, right? But if you guys ended up purchasing the tickets, then we can cancel the USA Today story and all that.
Yeah, the identity theft is getting at, because the funny thing, you told me this story 2 months ago or something like that, and then like a month later, one of my good buddies, who's actually on top of this stuff, like he actually had his credit and whatever frozen.
I'm not. I'm on a lackluster. I just throw my social security number out to anybody that asks for it.
Random Saturday morning, within 30 minutes, he got 70 notifications via email or his text message that someone was trying to get into one account or another that he had. Like, everyone's information's been leaked so many times. And it was like everything from his email account to just like whatever random, like someone must have got a list of like whatever his logins and whatnot were. And luckily he had most stuff like kind of locked down. And I never thought you had to do anything more than maybe freezing your credit, but he was talking about like E-Verify. There's something called NCTUE, which I think is how they kind of verify like utilities and shit like that. Check systems, which is what is a different system if you want to open a bank account. Like, he's got all this, he already had all this stuff locked down, but even though, because he did, they didn't get anything out of him. But like, he's like, he would have been financially screwed had he not had all these like checks and balances and stuff in there. And there's far more, there's just, I think everyone's social security number got leaked like a month ago, right? Like, that was like the big story that came out. I don't know. It's bad.
Did he piss somebody off, or was it just that
the hackers wanted a challenge? So
they're slowly
getting
through every American one at a time. But he's like, just the volume. Yeah. Anyways,
it's brutal. Yeah. I guess my addition to that is I've been getting all these emails about a house I used to own where people are saying that they've caught me doing something. So I'm just going to read a little bit of this, and it starts out with it's a
letter.
It's a letter. It's a letter. So it starts and it says, "I know that calling," and it gives my phone number, "or visiting," and it gives my former address, "would be a better way to reach you in case you don't cooperate. But don't even try to escape from this. You have no idea what I'm capable of in St. Petersburg, where I used to own my house. It's important you pay attention to this message right now. Take a moment to chill, breathe, and analyze it thoroughly, because we're about to discuss a deal between you and me, and I ain't playing games. You don't know me. However, I know a lot about you, and you must be wondering how, correct? Well, you've been treading on thin ice with your browsing habits, scrolling through those videos and clicking on links, stumbling on some not so safe sites. I actually installed malware on a porn website, and you accessed it. You know what I mean? So anyway, it goes on.
Well, hold on. Do you know what he means? What site is he talking about, John?
Which
I've gotten like tons of these emails. I don't believe it's from my browsing habits. Thank you. But yeah, they're asking anywhere from $1,500 to $2,000 where I'm supposed to pay them on Bitcoin. So yeah, and the weird thing is, the latest picture they showed is not of my house. It's actually of my my office. So yeah, in any event.
Are you just letting this go? Or are you like reporting it? Or are you just like, this is a fun game? Let's see what this idiot does next.
I'm letting it go because of, a friend taught me a while ago. He was doing we might edit this part out. He was doing a webcam, kind of deal with somebody. And they then at the end of the webcam experience threatened him saying, hey, if you don't pay us all this money, then we're going to release this video across all of your social media channels. And he thought about it and he was like, fuck it,
Yeah,
go for it. And they did. They did. But I mean, I love the fact that he owned it. Granted, he was just, we were younger, and he was just a waiter at a restaurant at the time. But he was just like, yeah, let's see what happens. And
what kind of video was it? What kind of video was it?
You can use your imagination and come up. I mean, yeah.
Oh yeah, I got it. I'm thinking about everything right now. Was it just a guy by himself?
Yeah, it was just him by himself in a camera.
Oh, so cool. Never mind. I don't want to think about it. I'm good.
Yeah.
So they literally just blasted that video out then when he said,
they blasted it out. Yeah, they showed it to everybody. Yeah, across his Facebook and everything at the time. Yeah, whatever channels were associated.
Mom, if you got a text from me, just try not to open it.
The intrigue that creates when you're like, no, hey, if you see that, don't do that. Yeah, that's not good. So, in any event, what are they going to do? It's complete BS. And if you go on Reddit, you'll see there are tons of other people that are getting this same exact message. So, I think there's absolutely no merit.
Yeah. Well, this segment has been brought to you by LifeLock.
Yeah. Secure all your shit. Anyways, let's get into some other business topics on this business podcast. So first one I want to talk to is a trend of companies just daring people to quit because they don't want them to they don't want to pay any severance. They're tired of laying people off. So they just want people to kind of quit on their own. Do you guys see the Amazon news, like the return to work kind of mandate? Now, I want to be real clear here because I'm not I think the laziest and lamest take on all the socials, everyone who's like, if you don't let people work 100% remote, you're a terrible company. I'm just like, shut up. It's there's value to being both in office and remote. It's just a tool, whichever one's best for the job, whatever. But where I have an issue is there's a lot of people who have been hired remotely for organizations in completely different cities. And then in short order, 6 months later, a year later, or something else like that, being told they have to report to an office where there is no office, and they're being told they had to reload. And I think that's kind of one example of it's just so far off the mark, and it's obvious that they want people to leave so they don't have to go through the rigmarole of having to lay them off.
I think that's the worst example of it. I think the best example of it is all these people that thought they were cheating the system, right? They're living in LA or San Francisco and they're working for this company and they're like, oh man, I can remote everywhere. And then they go to somewhere in Kansas and then they're bankrolling whatever that payment was at this specific time until it gets adjusted. To me, it's kind of those people have it coming. The others don't. But the flip side, I think this is really smart on behalf of the employers. I know that's not the best position to take, but I do.
They're going to save so much on severance. Good for them.
I know.
John's like, oh, by the way, I'm hiring.
No, that's not the best position to take. But in reality, it's all right, this is a total logical move.
John literally took notes on how to do this. A couple guys I want to get rid of on my team. I just make them fucking work in a different state all of a sudden, tell them to reload themselves. Problem solved.
was a guy I went to high school with, and he worked at the movie theater, and he like was getting, he became like 18, so he started getting, tattoos, and piercings.
He became 18. He became 18.
He worked at the movie theater when he was like 17, and then like 18, he starts getting tattoos where you can see whatever. And I love the strategy that the movie co in Tampa took at the time. What they did is they're like, you know what, we're just going to give this guy 1 hour a week. And he worked that for like a period of time. Like he's fighting the good fight. But after a while, like they wore him down. So I understand the strategy where, you don't want to have to deal with it. And let's just go ahead and change this over here and see what happens.
It's Milton from Office Space, just making a report to the basement until the problem resolves itself. We're seeing that play out in real life.
I understand. Like I'm all for like the fully remote thing is great if it's great. If you don't have brick and mortar locations anymore, like a lot of small businesses don't, it makes total sense. But I think I told you guys, like I saw that story. I think it was because I wrote it down right down here by KPMG. That last year, CEOs expected full-time in office. Like 64% of CEOs said they expected full-time in office last year. That number's up to 83% this year. So it's just, and it was like 900 CEOs were surveyed for it. So it's only going to, eventually we're going to move back to it. But I don't know. I think it's shitty that if you hire somebody full-time and your approach, and it's a remote position, and your approach to get them out is to make them come into the office, that says a lot about the company. Like that's a piece of shit company. Sorry, John.
It is, and it's also like the time, because you have to realize too, if this has happened in the first 6 months, 1 year, 2 years, something like that, this person left some other job they were probably doing just fine in to come work for your company, and then you're going to fucking do a rug pull on them. So that was. Well, John still thinks it's sweet, but whatever. You can tell on his face, he's like, I don't care. But then
I care. It's just I understand the position of like why they took it, and I can say like, all right, that's a good idea.
Right. So, but other, God, sure.
if they're C players, right, and they suck and they're not good at their job, whatever. I don't know. I mean, I think it's a pussy move to not have a conversation with them and use that as the shield to get rid of somebody. Like if I'm a C player and I'm working remote and somebody says, we need you into the office, but in behind the scenes, they're like, this guy's not a good employee for whatever reason. I suck at my job. I suck at the day-to-day task of it. Have that one-on-one conversation with me. Give me feedback, like on why you're letting me go. I'd much rather have that conversation than somebody bullshit me and say like, hey, we want to save a few bucks and you're a C player and you need to be in the office.
The way that I look at it is I can't remember the formula or whatever, but like, let's say that there's 10 people in a company, three people are doing all the work, right? And then you go up to like 1,000 people, right? And it's like, 30 or 300 are doing all the work, some kind of like square root. In any event, like this just keeps going up. So my thought is when this happens, it is all the C players. I can't stop laughing as I say this, like, because these are people that are going to get fired anyway. Like if they have rock star KPIs and they're just crushing it, like I don't see anybody letting those people go. They're going to figure out how to keep those A players no matter what. And then all the rest that are like, oh yeah, I just thought that doing laundry in the middle of the day and taking my kids to the water park, I thought that was okay. Like we have whatever from an argument, like, and people not wanting to deal with it, like, all right, we're gonna just go ahead and figure out a way to get rid of them. So as an employer, I love my employees. We have remote. Nobody goes into our 2 offices. I could see how that would have been appealing to get rid of some people. Not that I've done it.
So let me ask you a question. One, so you don't want your employees to do laundry during the day. Got that. Check that box. Got it. What about from an acquisition standpoint? This is happening more and more with acquisitions where instead of offering severance or getting somebody to, and I've seen it firsthand on the acquisition side, instead of like offering severance to get somebody to leave, they're basically just drowning people out. Like if people are quitting, they're not letting companies rehire to fill those roles to relieve the stress of the team that's currently in place. And they're just basically waiting for that person to quit, right? That happens all the time in acquisitions. Yeah. Like I said, I've seen it firsthand. And I think it's bullshit.
Yeah, no, I don't think it's cool. I don't think it's cool to mistreat anybody, right? So I think it's on both sides. If somebody's not doing their job accordingly, they should expect that type of behavior from a company and not to be saved, right? They should, try to do everything that they can. On the flip side, if you're acquiring a company, I think you should do the best for your employees and be realistic with them. Now, granted, if they're just people that don't want to do their jobs, I could see how somebody would employ the tactic of, hey, yeah, if you don't live within 10 blocks of the office, you're no longer going to work here.
Where
He just pulls voices out of nowhere. Like, I don't know, like
the context. So yeah, I see both sides of it, but I think at the end of the day, the rule is just treat people well, and do the best you can with that. So
yeah, was that a longshoreman from New Jersey accent? Because that's
so. The other thing I want to throw in here, because I was talking to you guys about this too, and Jared, I know you had some opinions on this, is like just SaaS quotas right now. I was talking to a friend last week and this is a guy who always been over 100% of quota. His whole team, he's a manager, has always been over 100% of quota. He grew his account base, and he works at, I'm not going to say the company, but it's a publicly traded firm.
What does it rhyme with?
I'm not going to say. He grew his account base 140%. And by growing his account base 140%, he's at 40% of his quota. And then his whole team, all people who are similar, they all have 80 to 120% growth. Collectively, they're at 35% of quota. None of them are making any money because like they're not high enough on the quota number. And the company even went as far to say, "Our bad. Looks like we miscalculated. Sorry, can't change anything though."
So let me ask you that. Like that, who is responsible for that quota being set? So if you crush your quota 1 year, and I think this is what you're getting at, if you crush your quota 1 year, the bar is up here now, right? So you've now got a new quota for the next year. Is that what I'm understanding? And then it's like now nobody's hitting quota.
No, according to him, it was the things that went wrong. They had some operations team that figured this stuff out, and part of it was because they didn't. They equated a company like a target company size to total growth size. This company sells a marketing solution. I'll throw that part out there. But what they didn't realize is like some companies that are more brick and mortar don't spend anything on marketing. Like they earmarked every company if they're this much revenue, we should be able to get this much out of them, even if it's not like a marketing priority for them. So he's like the disconnects on a count by count potential basis, like it was completely disconnected what's possible. But also even more ridiculous, they said they had like a CRM system with all kind of duplicates. And they just assigned a value to every single one without like even accounting for it. It was complete, like just like incompetence, but they didn't fix it. Now, the problem is like that's just one case. Like I was talking to a few other people when I heard about this, like, oh yeah, it's just normal right now. He's like, that's every SaaS company. Everyone's off the mark because like what happens is like they can, these guys are doing well growing their accounts and they don't have to pay them. So from an OpEx standpoint, that company looks amazing right now. Look how like we got our cost of sales down because we're not paying anybody anything, yet accounts are still growing. And if these guys quit, oh well, we'll find new ones. We'll find some other salespeople because
it's like ties back to what we were talking about.
Yeah, you're daring them to quit is basically that's how I tied this in. So
good job, dynamite tie-in.
Well, it's like when you hear the stories about the salesperson closing like an $80 million contract when the typical contract's like $500,000 or $1 million. They get the big whale, and then they figure out how to fire that guy or gal, so they don't have to pay out the commission.
Residuals. Yeah.
Year
2, year 3, whatever.
I've got friends. I've got a buddy that I'm thinking of that happened to.
What's his name? Name the company.
I could tell you what his name names or rhymes with. It's Nantucket. So the question is you've got heads of sales, right? You've got this whoever runs the companies, who's setting quota, right? And who's dropping the ball here? Because is it the sales leader? Is it the CRO or whoever the sales leader is, right?
Yeah, that would tie into it. It depends on what the org structure looks like, right? So if it's on the account management side, sometimes that's under a CRO, sometimes it's just new engagements. But I would say more often than not, it would be coming under the chief sales officer or the chief revenue officer.
So does that mean that the sales team has lost all faith and trust in the person that they report directly to?
Well, I know these guys are all looking. This guy and his entire team, so yeah.
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 I mean,
that's why like it's not a feature. It's not a bug. It's a feature, in my opinion.
Yeah, but there's going to be some A players that they're going to be able to keep when they do this. They're going to get rid of the B's and the C's, and it's probably just their way of right sizing the ship.
So they're going to move the A players, totally separate rabbit hole here. They're going to move the A players that are A solid, like salespeople, into management roles that probably aren't going to be good managers or leading teams.
Possible. I think most people are on to that the best salespeople don't necessarily make the best sales managers. So I think they would probably just give them a pass based on that quota. The other people now looking for jobs and probably getting out. And I've actually had a couple conversations now that I think about this with people. There was a buddy of mine over the summer that said something similar. He was looking, and I just talked to a guy that I did an introduction to a couple weeks ago. A similar situation. He said, "Yeah, dude, there's no way I'm going to hit my numbers this year, so I'm going to jump ship."
Man, it's crazy.
We wonder why the tech sector is struggling right now. Anyway. Anyways,
yeah, but it's an employer's market, right? It's a few years ago.
It shifted,
yeah,
for sure.
The unemployment rate was super low, and we're doubling salaries.
That's the thing, though. I mean, the unemployment rate's still super. I'm not really convinced it's an employer's market. I think 2 years ago was an
James.
outlier.
What do you know about this shit? You don't know about.
I don't know shit. I don't know. Yeah, I don't know anything. I've never worked in employment in my life.
Where is it right now, though? Is it? As an employer, like to me, it seems like we can offer. God, I sound awful as I say these things. We can offer people less of a salary than we could 2 years ago. But I don't know. I could just be trying things that are working.
I think. I mean, we've already seen things rebounding in the past. We had our 2 best months in 2 years. The last 2 months, like August and September, like things are rebounded pretty significantly. Now, there's also like this flawed idea that like it's weak. People,
good humble brag there.
Company that think it's an employer's market. Thank you. Company think it's
this
an
whole
employer's
topic
market.
was just so James could humble brag.
They don't realize that every other company's been cut so deep that no one's going to make a move, like if they don't absolutely have to, because no one's like, I don't want to. I made it this far. Like you guys are talking, like John, you were talking about, like, hey, only the A players are left. Everyone's there. You know what I mean?
Yeah, you're
so
right.
That's the thing is like those people aren't going to leave because like, hey, I made it. Like they actually need me at this point. Anyways, let's move on. I want to make sure we get it because the second thing I want to talk about, actually the third thing, I forgot about the LifeLock discussion. John, we want to talk about OpenAI. Going from nonprofit to profit.
Yeah.
Educate us here. What happened?
So it started off as like a nonprofit venture, right? Where companies are donating money and some big players like Elon Musk and so on and so forth, having board seats and putting their funds in to create this positive movement for artificial intelligence. Well, now there's been kind of a shakeup where they're turning the nonprofit into the smaller entity, and then the for-profit, which was the smaller entity, into the larger entity. So you're seeing a shakeup over there where the CFO and some of these other executives are leaving. Others are wanting to get off the board. So there's a bit of an exodus that's occurring. But this is why I think it's a good idea, and I'll tell you why. Because there's no way for the company OpenAI to survive if they don't do this as a for-profit model. It's not like it's Wikipedia where you just you're going to have all these contributors that are going to contribute to it. They're in a space where you're competing against Google and some of these other players that have such huge war chests that if you don't figure out a way to create as much profit as possible to reinvest in your company, then you will lose the slot that you've gained.
So what I found fascinating, because I had to look this up. I'm like, how did this even come up? Because OpenAI's original mission was to develop artificial general intelligence that is safe and beneficial to humanity. So they created themselves. They were the watchdog organization to make sure, guys, we're not going to become Skynet. We're not going to screw this up. Everything's going to be good. We're going to make sure it's done ethically. We're going to make sure no one gets victimized off this. And as we talked about in the first part of the show, now doing crime at scale for identity theft, never been easier thanks to AI. I just think it's hysterical. Like they realize, like, okay, that was a great mission, but there's so much more money by going completely counter to that.
Evil.
Yeah,
same thing.
Well,
and
yeah, I mean it's I didn't read anything on this. I mean, I thought it was like, John, I think you sent this over like an hour before the call. But it makes sense. Like anybody that didn't see the writing was on the wall. Like when this blew up, about a year and a half ago? When did OpenAI become like it was gonna happen?
For me, it's just I mean, it blew up when ChatGPT came out, which was 2 years ago. But what I'm just saying, what I find fascinating is like they're just abandoning the nonprofit mission which got them started because there's more money in being the bad guy. Like it's simple as that, which I just find hysterical.
They turn heel. They turn heel.
Everyone loves a heel turn.
Everyone loves the heel turn.
I mean,
Sam Altman's now bought like a $3 million car. They're seeing like some of these lavish expenses that he's had when apparently his personality was more of the nonprofit mission type. And that's now changing. So you'll probably hear about the enormous yacht that he's going to purchase. That's probably going to be named like for profit.
I mean, what was he was already making bank. Like, yeah. Before this, like, so what's the future of it? Like the for-profit piece of it, where they're going to make like their money.
So they have an agreement with AI or with Apple, right?
Yeah.
So Apple is going to partner with them on the AI that's going to be running on their billions of devices, and you're going to see other ventures like that where they're going to use the information that we're putting into these things to figure out a way to capitalize on it. That's why you're seeing it. It's very Google. If you look at Google's history of what they did, not that they started out as a nonprofit, but they, I believe, started off with a better mission than they have now.
Yeah.
And it just gets messy, and you have lawsuits, and you have them lying about the data that they're using. It's a very ugly picture, and it's not the best thing for people.
I feel like we are having it shoved down our throat every second of every day. I mean, just even with the Microsoft buying LinkedIn and basically telling LinkedIn to force AI down all of your users, like every time you log in, it's like, and it's like their AI is it's not good right now.
In the short term, everything sucks more for sure.
Yeah.
Every Google search sucks more. Every trying to make a LinkedIn post, it's like, hey, let AI write this, and like it's so pedestrian, it's so annoying.
That's a good call. I didn't put that together. I didn't realize that's why they have all that AI crap everywhere. I was just like, what are they doing?
So I think we got maybe next week. Cause I know we've been gathering ammo on this. We can do. I think next time we do a show, we can do entirely on AI because I think we all have a lot of takes on this from a lot of different angles.
I'll study.
But,
I'll read what you said.
Jared will read a few things. Anyways,
I just hope my audio is better this episode. That's all I care about right now.
Let's do one more. So this is a fresh one that came out. I actually saw this article last week. It was so stupid I didn't even comment on it. And then it like went viral today. So there was some crappy article, like when Yahoo Finance and MSN and everyone picks up the same thing. It was talking about Gen Z and how 6 out of 10 employers are firing Gen Z grads they just hired. And, 75% of employers are saying Gen Z is unsatisfactory and 46% say lack of professionalism and all this stuff. And it's absolute garbage. Because if you actually get past the clickbait articles out there and go to the actual study that was done, I use the word study really loosely. What they actually said was 6 out of 10 companies fired a recent college graduate they hired this year. So everyone was like, the way that it was like framed in the media as like 60% of Gen Zers are getting fired the same year. No, it's 60% of companies fired a person they hired this year, meaning they may have hired like 1,000 Gen Zers, but they fired one, so they're in that 60%.
Do you have the snapshot of what I sent over from that article? Because I think when you posted it on LinkedIn, O'Brien had a good point in the comments talking about how every generation the same complaints happen, and they just try to make it look worse than what it is.
Yeah,
it's basically somebody going from a college kid to a professional. Like there's going to be hiccups. There's going to, no matter if you're a millennial, Gen X, Gen Z, it doesn't matter. It's always been there.
I found a clip. It was like an Instagram reel or some while ago where it was a comedy clip, but the guy actually found articles. He found articles sourced back to as far back as like 1850 of people saying nobody wants to work anymore. Like there's always a sentiment. There is always, since the beginning of time, even during the Industrial Revolution, everyone thought the younger generation was just anyway.
Except for the Greatest Generation.
Yeah.
There's a reason why they're called the Greatest Generation.
Well, it's because they fought the Nazis. Anyways.
Didn't they have like huge hobo shacks? There's like hobo villages. You know, I mean, there's like unemployment was at like 20%.
That was the Great Depression Dust Bowl era, but yeah.
But that's the Greatest Generation, right? Like they all kind of, you know.
That's our grandparents.
There's everyone who fought
in World War II.
Yeah, that's why they're
John, go down that rabbit hole. Let's talk about that.
Anyways, but I thought the thing that kills me is like how people can read. It's not that like so. There's bad data and there's bad analysis. Now, this was an example of both because this company was like, first off, they surveyed 966 business leaders. They didn't qualify what that means. Like, are the three of us business leaders? These aren't CEO. They didn't say what industry. These could be people at a McDonald's, they could be people at retail. These could be people at a farm. These could be people at it did not specify like what kind of office environment they're in. Didn't specify if they're salespeople, if they're technologists or anything like that. And the other way, so like the data was bad. It didn't actually give us anything useful. But the other way of looking at it, I was saying like 60% of companies like fired at least one person they hired that year. But, like another way of looking at it is like 40% of companies, they got to figure it out. The fact, if you were to tell me 40% of companies were really fucking good at hiring, that they had like 100% like retention rate, I'd be like, man, we're getting better at this. Like, yeah. And like I said, it also doesn't say like, is that an improvement or are things getting worse? You know what I mean? Like, was it 50% last year? Was it 80%? Like what? So that's kind of my issue. And then naturally, like all the conversations online about this or everyone up in arms about, well, they need to do a better job of training. And we don't even know if there's an issue. We don't even know if there's anything abnormal about this. We don't have any context about like what any of these fucking numbers mean.
What was it? What was it? Like the study came from where?
So the study was from intelligent.com, which is ironic. That's the name of the website.
Did you say Perez Hilton?
Perez Hilton.
Fucking idiot.
So intelligent.com is who created this study, but then it got picked up by every like trash blog who then like changed the headlines for whatever clickbait they were going for. So
it's wild how they just will grab like, and they just keep trading up until it gets like all the way to the top. And then you have like a major news outlet just reporting, BS data. We've hired some Gen Z people. I've been impressed with the Gen Z employees that we've hired. Like I see like a work ethic that I'm just like, all right, this is exactly what we want. I haven't seen everything that people are claiming, and I think that's just because they have really lazy, shitty hiring processes. So if you're just gonna let in, somebody that sucks, then you deserve to have somebody that sucks at their job. If you're looking for an A player that you're willing to pay well, that's going to crush it, then do the diligence necessary, get that person in, and then treat them well.
And I would say that actually tracks. Unless we're talking about 40. God, sorry.
Unless they're remote workers, of course, John. Then get them the fuck out after 6 months.
just showing up in office is all that John needs to be impressed.
The Gen Zer that we hired, he does go into our office. We don't force him. The last one, he's fantastic. I love this guy. I feel like I should say his name, but I don't want to put that kind of pressure on him. Not that the poor people listening would, haunt him. But but I think in that is a good sign. He wants to come to the office because he wants to be around the few others that actually go into the office to learn. But
not John.
But that's a different ethic that he has, which I believe is going to be translated through other generations. It's just it's smart to be around other people that are good at what they do.
Yeah. John, remember that guy what's the post of LinkedIn, Instagram page?
Oh,
the Martin Luther King story, Jr. story.
Yeah. The best of LinkedIn is what it's called.
The best of LinkedIn. It's such a good follow. The best of LinkedIn. What was the story? The Martin Luther King guy?
This guy posts, it's just total virtue signaling, whichever direction you want to take it. And he says, he goes, he's an employer and, the boss, and he's in his office working on Martin Luther King Day. And then the employee asks like, hey, boss, why are we working today? And then he goes on to say that like Martin Luther King was a hard worker and he would want him working, and like this total just BS response. And he like finishes it up. He's like, and that's why those are the employees that I want to work on, and that's how we're making the world a better place. It's just, dude, but people are just continually vomiting that. I highly recommend everybody check out the Best of It LinkedIn on Instagram.
And the other one is the Reddit forum, LinkedIn Lunatics is a good one too. That's always
all right.
Direct link to every idiotic thing that happens.
Yeah. And then, and also another tip for productivity, if you want to have fun and your company is kind of fast and loose, we don't have this. You can actually get Pornhub icons loaded to your Slack. Yeah, we'll have that in the show notes.
Tying it right back. So the friend that John had at the beginning of the episode who got this video leaked to the internet, his friend says, yeah, I was a friend. Not a first person. Anyways.
That letter that you read is going to it makes so much more sense. So Pornhub was the site that you were looking through. Got it.
This is a bit like, we're just having fun. Yeah.
All right. What's just ended here for the week? I'm having fun. I'm glad we got through 2 episodes, guys. This is amazing. I don't know if we got maybe 3 people listen to it. John, you're in charge of figuring out what our stats were from the last one. So, we're going to keep this going. We'll see how much longer we can.
The next one we could be all together in person.
Could
just tease.
We should be. Yeah, see if the Stark will pull it off.
Yes. Sponsored by O'Callahan's.
Yeah. All right, I'll shut up. Close this out.
Yeah, that is a wrap for episode 2 of the Business is Bullshit podcast. I can't believe we made it this far, guys. It's kind of crazy. You can catch us on iTunes and Spotify and maybe some other, I don't know if we're anywhere else yet. James Hornick, Jared Gibson, John Soraka signing off, reminding you that business is bullshit.